Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this advanced English conversation with Greg and Mary Daphne. We are discussing the Gricean Maxims for better conversation, and there are 4 of those maxims or principles. All right, so let's jump right in. The first one is quantity. So when we're thinking about good conversation, quantity comes to mind. So what do you think of quantity, Greg?
I think of quantity, I think of volume, right? The amount of that's what's being spoken, right?
Yeah.
How many words are being used, or how basically how much is being said during the conversation.
Exactly. That's exactly right and on point. So basically, how much information are you providing without it being too little or too much? We have a phrase, which is actually an acronym, TMI, which is, what is TMI?
Too much information.
Right. So there's definitely a nice balance between covering the subject enough, but not overdoing it. And so you might think about, okay, so how do you practice this in conversation with people? Well, leave out any extraneous or extra information or details that don't add to the conversation. For example, if I'm talking about how cold it was one day, I might say how many layers I was wearing, but I might not say that I was wearing a pink polka dot, outfit with really, colorful socks. And it's just, you don't need to go into that much detail.
Right. The point is, in that context, you're trying to emphasize how cold it is. So the number of layers of clothing you wear reinforces that it's cold. Yep. But the color of the clothing has nothing to do with it being cold. So there's no point in discussing the color when all you're trying to do is prove that it's cold. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other danger with not heeding this principle and giving too much information is that it's really easy to confuse your listener and to get off track with your conversation. So you get sidetracked, meaning you were talking about how cold it was and what happened on that very cold day, and now all of a sudden you're talking about your favorite clothing line for outdoor gear like Patagonia or something.
Yeah, exactly. And when when the conversation gets off track, you end up maybe losing the focus of the person you're speaking with, right? So if you can't stay focused on what it is you're trying to discuss, you might not be able to convey the important points that you were attempting to convey.
Really
so
good point.
It's important to be concise and precise with your language.
Excellent. So keep that in mind for the first one. The second one is quality. So this is all about how high the quality is of what you are contributing to the conversation. So is it going to provide information? Is it going to make them laugh? Is it going to enhance their life in some way, right? Thinking about almost like, how does it benefit them, right? The person that you're talking to, or it could be a group of people as well.
Yeah, I mean, that for me, certainly what's going to keep my attention when I'm talking to someone is if I'm learning from them or they're engaging me in some way. Mm-hmm. And if what they're discussing is fluff, if it doesn't have any real import to me, then I'm not going to really listen. And so I can see that it makes sense to me that that's part of the paradigm here.
Right. So examples of this is, making sure that you're not saying anything hurtful or mean or things that have no relevance to their life.
Yeah. It's out of context for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you practice this? Well, it really comes down to active listening and to getting to know your audience or your listener better. So figuring out what their interests are by actively listening to them in conversation, understanding, their life, what's happening right now in this moment. Are they studying for a really difficult exam that takes a whole year to prepare? What's going on with them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think of the first one, quantity, as sort of the what it is you're saying.
Yeah.
And then quality is sort of the why, right? Like why do they care?
Yeah.
Getting at the essence of what it is you're saying.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And so to practice this, really think about how your words affect the person who is listening to what you're saying or to the conversation in general, right? And being mindful of that impact.
Great.
Yeah. The third one is relation, and this really means relevance. Relevance, it's really driving home, like, is this information going to be useful to the listener or to the audience or to the group of people with whom you are having a meeting?
Right. Yeah. It sounds similar in that if the information isn't relevant to what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to do with my life, I'm not going to really process it. I'm not going to listen as closely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
So it's easy to confuse the second one and the third one that we just shared, but they are a little bit related. So you can think of this one as really being useful and having a purpose. Like, what is the purpose of you sharing this information? Why should the listener care about it, right? And it might be a new topic that they have never heard about, but just kind of thinking about it from their perspective, like, how would they react to this information?
Yeah, putting yourself in their shoes, which is always good advice in
Yeah.
any conversation or social context. Trying to see something from someone else's perspective helps you frame what you're trying to say in a way that will be most easily understood by them.
Absolutely. And so for this one, how do you practice this one? Well, you do exactly what Greg suggested, which is trying to see something from their perspective and trying to put yourself in their shoes, because this will also help with empathy. It'll help with expanding your worldview. So if you really want a challenge with this one, when you're practicing this one of relation/relevance, one thing that you can do is to get into a conversation with someone who has a very different perspective on something than you, right? So we talked about for and against. Maybe go out of your way to find a friend or a colleague that is against something that you are for, or is for something that you are against, and try to see it from their perspective.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's a good one to have as well, because it's nice to have multiple perspectives on something, and it makes life more interesting
And more open-mindedness. Yeah.
and inclusive. So that's always good. All right, and our last one is manner. So this one is about the way that you're communicating something, right? So you can think of it from the way that you are speaking, right? How loud you are, how clear you are, how fast or slowly you're speaking. And also, your body language, right? Are you confidently sharing this information? Are you more reserved about it and a little bit shy about it, right? How are you sharing the information? How are you engaging in conversation?
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is delivery. How are you delivering your words? Are you doing it in a way that's aggressive?
Yeah.
Or that's friendly and inclusive, right? How does a person feel? How are you making your audience feel while you're speaking?
Right, exactly. So it's definitely something to keep in mind because, as we say, it's not just what you say, but how you say it. And so if you're really thinking about the goal of your communication, right, and for every context that's different, it relies on so many different things like the context, the participants meaning like the audience and your listeners, and, the mood, so many things. So thinking about like what the purpose is and how can you best deliver or convey that information. Yeah. So it's something to practice, and these are the 4 principles to better conversation, keeping in mind, well, let's run through a recap. So the first one, quantity. Do you remember the second one?
Would it be quality?
Yep. Then the third one is relation or relevance. The fourth one is manner. Okay, so keeping in mind these 4 principles, and the next time that you have a conversation with somebody, try to practice these 4 things. And each time you have a conversation, they will be different. So keep that in mind too, right? It's not just one way of doing that across all communication contexts. So it'll change, and be prepared for that, which is okay.
You don't have to nail all of them, and you don't want to be robotic in your interactions.
Yeah.
But by keeping these in mind, and maybe just trying one at a time, you can start to internalize them, and they become second nature for you, so that when you use them, you don't even have to think about using them. They just sort of happen.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. So try those out, practice them. Let us know what you think. Let us know your experience with these Gricean Maxims. And we'll see you right here for another Advanced English conversation. Bye for now.